This is the USHL Podcast.
Joining us now on the USHL Podcast is the USHL Coach of the Year from the Dubuque Fighting Saints, Oliver David. Oliver, how are we doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm out for a walk in Dubuque, Iowa. A little foggy, reminds me of home, actually, being at the beach in California. The fog rolls in the morning. I don't see any water, and I don't have a surfboard, so I'm dealing with it. But it's a nice morning nonetheless.
Terrain's a little different in Dubuque than Southern California, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. You know, the one cool thing about Dubuque, not Southern California, but and I mean this in the simplest of terms, but it's actually hilly, surprisingly hilly. If you want to just generalize what Iowa probably is like, if you've never been here, cornfields, I guess we would say. So a little mini San Francisco, super mini San Francisco. But yeah, it's not bad.
Dubuque, Iowa, the San Francisco of the Midwest.
That's right. Trademark it.
What have you been up to? I know it's unfortunate how everything unfolded to end the season, because I know you guys had a good shot at that Clark Cup, but either from a hockey standpoint or otherwise, what have you been up to during this little break here?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody had a shot at that Clark Cup, or almost everybody. It's definitely not an easy league to play in, and the competition is exceptional. We were headed into some of those teams with about 12, 14 regular season games to go, and that was a little nerve-wracking seeing the progress some of those guys were able to make, coaches and players with their clubs. But ultimately, what I've been up to as a result of not being able to play those 14 games is a lot of reading, a lot of trying to learn, a lot of reflection, self-reflection, a lot of reaching out to people reaching out. I think it's no surprise we get on social media and we see the connections people are trying to make, which is awesome, especially in our coaching community. I see that happening all around. So, yeah, doing probably what everybody else is doing. I've got little guys at home. I've got a 4-year-old boy and a almost 5-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl and a wife. And that's been awesome, actually. We've got a nice little schedule going. Fortunate I have a basement, so I'm able to do some work down there and find some time for myself in the house and a lot of time with them. So it's quite honestly, I say this without any insincerity. It's been a real healthy time for me personally. I feel fortunate that that's the case, and actually a relaxing time. Again, and no insincerity to anybody that is not the case for, or is connected with somebody that might be ill in these times. But it's a good reminder for me that to appreciate when things are healthy and okay at home.
Oliver, I obviously want to start with the congratulations to you and the organization for the award. A big moment for you and for Dubuque, but there's also this dichotomy with the award of a year that was trending in such a great direction for Dubuque. I look at it from some of the games I got to call, Bucks and Saints, and I got to see your team firsthand. And candidly, I would have given Dubuque the front runner in my mind for a chance at a Clark Cup this year. I really would have. What's been the digestion for you? It's been tough for every team, but for a team like yours specifically that had such a shot at a championship this year, what's the digestion been like from the team? What was it like at first when you realized we're not going to get a shot at this?
Yeah, I mean, so we were on the ice in Youngstown. We played Waterloo on a Wednesday night. It was a makeup game due to bad weather a couple weeks earlier, March 11th. We had scheduled a sleeper bus to take us to Youngstown. For us, that's approximately an 11-hour trip with the time change. I mean, we stopped for breakfast. So all in all, it's about 11 hours with the Eastern time zone change. We knew that it was a possibility. We had breakfast. We got on the ice. We had an outstanding practice, extraordinary for when you take into account getting off the bus. And we talked about it being potentially one of our last times together, not knowing if we were going to be able to play the weekend series at Youngstown. And that, the reason I start there is that embodies what you saw on the ice when we played games, and I hope what you saw in terms of kind of camaraderie, a team spirit, an effort level consistently in our team performances, win or lose. And we attacked that practice. I mean, that's the best way to say it. We attacked that practice. Jack Maluski, our media guy, we had a break at center ice. He called me over to the bench and he said, yeah, we're suspended. I went back to the huddle. I said, guys, that was it. Yeah, there was shock on their faces, but really the process of the entire travel and how it was handled is a good case study in how we went about our season. So my main point in telling that story is, we had, what do we have, a 200-day USHL season? Let's just round it out at 200 days here for sake of argument. We had 150 high-performing days in Dubuque because of the kids. And we'll get into the other factors why here in a second. But when it was a suspended season, immediately you feel like, oh man, the fans, we don't get to play for them. That really does come into the equation. They were not part of the 150 days that we spent together. They were part of however many home games we had, and maybe the ones that are diehard and travel with us, which is quite a few actually. But not, they don't have closure. For me personally, the spot I'm at in my life, if we go back to the beginning here, I'm not in it to put a cup over my head. I don't know if that's blasphemy. I don't know if that's something you should be saying. I'm deeply, deeply, deeply competitive. Deeply, I think you can see that thread in my story. But the recognition is not about feeding my ego personally. So I think we did our work. I'm actually certain that we did our work. We won a heck of a lot. Yes, we wanted to win more. But when these types of things make it impossible to play hockey, you're reminded of other things as well. And I think the hockey that we got done in a championship fashion. And we move on.
So for you, this accomplishment isn't your first accomplishment in the USHL. You're actually the first California-born and trained coach in USHL history. And going back to growing up in California, I don't know if you can find a more less traditional route than the route you took with roller hockey and all that fun stuff. It all started at Water City Roller Hockey in Monterey after you returned from Europe playing ice hockey, and then you advanced up the roller hockey ranks in coaching before you switched to U18 with the California Wave. You won a national championship with Mike Lewis, and then you just kept climbing. The rest is history, and now you're USHL Coach of the Year. What was that journey like? Obviously, it's a lot different than people are used to.
Starting in the beginning, I mean, yeah, who's heard of Water City Roller Hockey? To me, it's awesome that's happened. I mean, think of honestly, first of all, it's on Fort Ord, O-R-D, which happens to be my initials, but an old military base in Northern California, very famous for different reasons. Now there is a university on Fort Ord, Cal State University Monterey, and they had a basketball gym, probably 100-year-old basketball gym there forever, since I'm going to say it predates World War II, or maybe was built because of that situation. I don't know the exact history. And coincidentally, a family from Los Angeles moved up there with a few little kids. We're in the ice hockey scene and different things down in Southern California. Moved up to the Monterey Bay, which is paradise for anybody that doesn't know. Anyway, they moved there and wanted to get out of the the hustle and bustle and opened up in this 60, 70, year old basketball gym, a roller hockey, bought some boards, a roller hockey business. They started there, and it was on the basketball floor when I first showed up there, and eventually got sport court and all that different stuff. And I'll keep this short. The best thing about that was I had no idea what I was doing. Zero, none. I was not fortunate to grow up in the ice hockey world. I didn't start playing roller hockey till I walked into there. I mean, I played as a kid, like on tennis courts, and whenever we didn't have ice, I'd play outside like everybody else, where I'm from at least, sort of like the Canadian pond hockey, if you will, but all year long. I didn't have those mentors or any kind of role models in hockey in terms of a coach. So unfortunately for me, the journey continues to be quite a long one. But starting out, I had nothing. So that was the best thing about Water City Roller Hockey for me, is 100 complete support by Mark Tanis and his family, the owner there, who I believe is still involved locally, giving me a chance. Here comes this 19-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid from LA, walks in the door. Obviously had a hockey background. I played, and there I was. And they basically gave me the keys to the arena, not the arena, to the gym, So, and I learned with kids that I didn't know what I was doing, and it was awesome. And their eyes were on me, and I felt the coaching bug bite me, and wanted to represent myself, but also Water City at that time as best I could. And that's sort of where I picked up the kind of my learning and reading habit, and got some motivation. My motivation came, in my case, again, you want to talk non-traditional, not from winning the Stanley Cup one day, but coaching children and trying to do the best I could by them. And here we are.
I read a quote going through all of the research and everything that said, when you started coaching, all you did was read, and read some more. In terms of that, what was some of the books that really made an impact on you that kind of helped propel you through the coaching ranks? Is there one that you can remember back that really hit you home that you still might use today?
More than a specific book, if we stay kind of in that time, which is, 2 decades ago now, I'm 41. I was there at 18, 19, actually played junior at 20, and went back and forth a little bit with ice and roller there, and then went overseas and played pro ice for a year before eventually landing into ice hockey coaching full time in 2004. But ultimately at that time, as I mentioned, I was short on mentors. I was short on role models. I had a couple of adult males in my life. I grew up with my mom and my brother. There were 3 of us in my house, and hockey was, I don't even know what to say about hockey. It's all going to sound cliche, but it's my life. It's the way I have life. It's what I do with my life. So at that time, my only chance, wasn't to coach in hockey games, to climb a ladder. And I look back saying it was my only chance. That wasn't my mind set at that time. It was just learning. So I read everything. I started with whatever Borders at the time. There used to be a place called Borders, like Barnes and Noble, kind of their competitor, now out of business. I sat there, or a coffee shop, and whatever money I had, which was nil, I bought books because I was passionate about trying to figure my life out and figure coaching out and do right by these kids. And I started with books, simply 52-week hockey coaching, all the shooting books, Dan Bilesma. So you want to coach in the NHL, or you want to play in the NHL, I think was the name of his book, about what it kind of takes, and learning how to get there. I mean, any hockey book, think 20 years ago, there's not even that many hockey specific books now.
No.
How few there were. And then, I think that would be step one, is if fortunately for most guys these days and players these days, there are so many good coaches. They don't necessarily come from an area. Even if you come from LA now, you have outstanding coaching. I was before the time that those guys that are still currently there and have been through there since started coaching. So if you're like me, and hopefully it's a rarity these days, but you need somewhere to start. I mean, it's really just put one foot in front of the other, get yourself into some books and start learning. And now we obviously have these podcasts, this platform. We've got Twitter. We've got lots and lots of information out there. And quite honestly, I would spend as much energy and time as you could, if you're a young coach, digesting it all until you start to come up with a way that you call your own. And that didn't happen for me for a long time. I'm still working through that, kind of making things your own. But just start. Step two would be, as I just said, kind of figure out what makes sense to you and what you're all about. And then when you get into it, you start to refine like anything else. And at this point in my 40s, I've kind of found what I gravitate to, and I really try to maintain the learning, not just reading. And now you can imagine, I have great mentors through the last 20 years. I've been fortunate to meet people that have changed my life in hockey, and it's more about learning or continuing to learn and find ways to learn more than just books. But it's just a process of refinement, a process of learning from experience and growing as you go, as I like to say.
All right. So last question for you on the roller hockey front. You played in pro beach hockey. For the young kids that don't know what that is, it was an outdoor hockey on the beach. There was ramps behind the net. It was a crazy endeavor that was on ESPN, and you were actually the youngest player in the league. What can you tell us about your time in pro beach hockey?
That's where I learned to be a man. No, I'm just kidding. Hanging out with those rascals, and it was great. What did I learn? Nothing. The only thing I learned is how great the hockey community is. That's the first thing that comes to mind. The hockey, you don't realize, not everybody. I didn't play in the USHL. Lots of people don't play in the USHL, and they go on beyond the USHL in terms of climbing the ladder. But guys go in all different directions. Guys go into sales jobs in hockey. Guys go into managing or scouting or a local rink somewhere. Guys that love hockey come in all shapes and sizes and go in all different directions. And Pro Beach was a reality show. For those that don't know, that's the one thing that catches people by surprise. So it was basically like, think something like the X Games and anything like, the Kardashians, whatever, any normal or traditional at this point reality show of the time right now. We shot 4 weekends in May around Memorial Day. I think we were done on Memorial Day. We did it 3 years in a row. So all 4 weekends in May, and then it aired throughout the summer. So it was a made-for-TV weekend party that we were able to have every weekend, and ultimately the guys, the camaraderie, learning how to really be a part of something bigger than yourself and find your place can happen in the rarest of places, and that's my one big takeaway, that the people of hockey are awesome through and through, wherever they come from.
It's a phenomenal roster this Saints team had. Starting at the top, you obviously look at Ty Jackson, Dylan Jackson, Reese Gaber, the year those guys had, Braden Doyle on the back end. But to me, Oliver, the thing that really stood out was, to use almost a California reference, it was like ocean waves coming in on high tide. Your lines just kept coming and coming and coming, and there didn't seem to be much of a reprieve when you played against the Saints, because there wasn't a line you could match up with and say, okay, well, now's our chance to go get something done. Was that the way you tried to sculpt this team, or did this just kind of happen as a matter of circumstance with this season?
You know, we're on the phone for a few reasons here. Number one, the GMs and coaches of our opposition have voted me into this recognition, and you know, somebody has to get voted to this point. I realize that, but ultimately, the first thought, it's humbling, and it's a reminder that this is bigger than all of us. We're part of something bigger. In this case, the best amateur hockey league in the world that we're in the USHL, and to have your colleagues recognize you for their various reasons, or maybe how our team played, is really just those two things. It's super humbling, and very, very motivating. Very motivating, actually, you know, to keep up this kind of standard. So I want to thank them. In terms of our team, which is what you're alluding to, I don't build the team. Callie Larson, our general manager, builds the team. And if you want to frame this even further, we're on the phone because of the people I just mentioned. Forward of the year, Reese Gaber. Player of the year, Reese Gaber. Goaltender of the year, Eric Portillo.
Not bad.
I want to get into my staff here if we can. I think it's very important.
Absolutely.
If you want to talk about surrounding, I mean, how much more insulated can you be, or protected,
Yeah.
or, you know, built, you know? So obviously, there's some day-to-day things that need to happen, or did happen, is probably a better way to say it. How we operate, the things that we value, the standards that we try to live by, the behaviors that we want to call normal in Dubuque, and then hold players accountable to daily. That's part of the 150 days of high performance I think these kids had. We were really, really successful in operations daily. But you can't ask for a better situation from every aspect. The way the team was built, the players, the way that the players played, and the quality of players that we had, and everybody has star players in our league, but the building part, you know, everybody builds slightly differently, and the way we were built looked like California Waves this year, you know, and I agree with you. It was one after another. It was very gratifying, and mostly because of how beautiful it was at times, but because the players believed in working their tails off. And, you know, we're fond of saying we fought like saints, you know, and it was awesome, man. It was awesome. That's what it was. And I appreciate the wave reference. Makes me feel good.
It was indeed an accolade-laden year for the Saints. Yourself with Coach of the Year. You mentioned Gaber's prowess this year. Also, Callie Larson, GM of the Year. I want to talk about the relationship there, because throughout hockey, there are different kinds of GM and coaching relationships. There are harmonious ones. There are tense ones. There are working relationships that are just strictly that, working relationships. Where does the Callie Larson Oliver David relationship lie on that spectrum?
Yeah, above harmonious, I would use the word loving. Callie loves me in his heart. I feel it every day, and I love him right back. Hey, Callie. I think we are, you know, I don't know if it's opposites attract, or you know, pick your scenario here in terms of relationships, but we are not the same. We are very, very different. And we argue, and not just argue, disagree all day long, like a real old, successful married couple. We've known each other about 12 years now. When I first started in junior, when I left LA and moved up north, I started in Kenai River in the North American League. Callie was just starting out. He was representing players coming over from Scandinavia. And we fortunately landed one of his players in a trade. I believe it might have been his first player he helped come over. And that player had a great time with us. He was maybe arguably the best player in the league. And it was awesome. We built a great relationship. I still know that player today and keep in touch with him. So right at my beginnings, Callie and I met. And I'm pretty sure right at his beginning. So Jason Lammers and myself were here in Dubuque. We were able to get Callie Larson here. He was a scout for Sioux City 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago now. And we were able to get him over as our director of scouting when I was still an assistant coach here. A little bit of timeline here. And he became our general manager. Jason left, and boom, there's Callie on the phone. Let's get Oliver back here and see what he can do. So, I mean, to say that I owe Callie, is, well, I'll just keep it black and white here. It's an understatement. And I'm very appreciative. I enjoy working with him most days, but 1 out of 7 days a week. And he's been tremendous in my career and helpful in making me better.
I think about this team in terms of not only, as we talked about, the players that made it happen on the point sheet, but the guys who were mainly responsible for how many waves came in off the coast for the Saints team. The guy that stands out to me, and an interesting storyline for him, much like yourself, in the fact that it was kind of a wayward route to where you got to. Reggie Millette, forward for you guys, had a wayward route. He was a tier 3 player, then a tier 2 player, now a tier 1 player here in the USHL. And boy, at least when he was playing the Bucks, did he have a big impact when he was on the ice.
Yeah, I mean, I've got time for guys like that. We go back to team building. Reggie is an average skater, an average puck handler, an average shooter, an average hockey player at the tier 1 level. What Reggie is not is average in any category that I personally value in a human being. He's extraordinary. And the difference that he makes, and honestly, the quality that he brings to a locker room is the reason why we can find the consistency. Guys like him, Luke Robinson is another one. These guys that have the character and make a difference every day, make it fun. Sorry, guys.
Oh, no problem at all.
Make it fun to come to work and give life meaning. The hard part in the game is, sticking to your values. And in my situation, in Callie's situation, and we have owners, and it's an extremely competitive league. Sticking with what you think matters, and giving opportunity to people that deserve it, for me, goes beyond talent. And let's be honest, you need extraordinary talent to win in the USHL, but I think you need something else too. And you bring up Reggie. There are other examples, again, which is why we're on the phone today, in our locker room from this season. It's the best season of my life. I've coached 11 straight years of junior hockey, and me personally, it's unparalleled what has happened, and I've enjoyed every season in different ways. But Reggie and Luke Robinson and Aiden Fulp, and the way that Gaber plays, and Antonio Venuto stepping in and being 100% coachable, and on and on. Unfortunately, every single guy I can reference right now, but you know how these things go. We can't talk about everybody. They made it what it is, and they literally made me want to get out of bed every morning, and I owe them my life and to continue working and trying to get better for guys like that.
Very clear the passion and the pride you have, not only for Dubuque, but for this specific team this year. It sounds like being inside of that room was a privilege and an honor to be a part of that every single day. Do you think that will be the lasting memory of this season? Not COVID-19 ending the season early, not a what-if Clark Cup, but the fact that you had a group that was as tight and driven towards the same goal as it sure seems like you've talked about it today they were.
The ability to perform how we wanted daily. You know, the only thing we have hanging in our gym is the day-to-day is the way it's kind of it's all encompassing, and it's left for interpretation, obviously, but we define it. We define what that means, and we were able to achieve that. The other thing that I will remember, again, it was my 11th straight season, no hiatus. Very, very fortunate to keep working and climbing the ladder in our U.S. junior hockey ranks, and the level of belief in what we were doing and support that I had and felt daily, much like Reggie, from our two first-year assistant coaches, Evan Dixon and Justin Hale, both Stevens Point's grads and had some success there at Stevens Point. Justin spent some time in the North American Hockey League and elsewhere prior. Also in Madison a few years ago on their staff prior to joining us. And Evan came straight from the D3 ranks, winning a national championship. The way that they worked together and the way that they supported me, which was every minute of every hour of every day, they were in full support. Honestly, those two guys, in terms of staff, in terms of coach of the year, or why something like this can happen, those two guys carried us all season and did the work and the coaching on the ice to bring everybody along. I'm kind of if you haven't figured it out already, just based on the narrative we've had here, I'm not really a linear thinker. I'm an all over the place kind of creative minded guy. I make no bones about it. I'm from the land of fruits and nuts. I love it. I'm passionate about it. I take great pride in being from Los Angeles, California. You know, go Kings. These guys were able to put conversations together, make presentations, put drills together, put practices together, put concepts together that we strive to accomplish and keep the whole thing on target. Obviously, every year you start out aiming at a target. For us, it was to accomplish what we wanted day to day, and it wasn't the Clark Cup. It was be high performers as many times as we can. And those guys, I'll probably get trophies made for those guys. To be honest, they're the co-coaches of the year. So, thanks, Evan. Thanks, Justin.
We really appreciate your time. Another big congratulations. Everybody we talked to prior to this, or if you talk to anybody, say the word passion when it comes to you. And obviously that is a big part of why you won Coach of the Year. So we really appreciate all the hard work. We really appreciate what you do for the league and for the players. And once again, congrats and thank you for your time today.
Thanks, guys. It was awesome.
Perfect.
Same to you, Oliver. Appreciate it. Thanks, my friend.
This is the USHL Podcast.